Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel today. And in today's tutorial, as you can see right here on your screen, I'll be sharing with you all the detailed process on how to sew this one side two steps flare skirt. So it's actually a simple tutorial. All you just have to do is to pay proper attention. So as you can see right here, I actually made my skirt in a shorter version. So if you decide to make yours in a longer version, it's totally up to you. Likewise, the same process in achieving that. The only difference is that you need a larger amount of fabric to achieve the longer version of this skirt, which you see right here. So if this sounds like something you're really interested in learning how to do, please don't skip any part of this video, and I'll just dive right into what I have for today. So guys, this is an Ankara print fabric, but it's called a George. The texture is quite different from the normal Ankara print fabric. This is thick, so there is no need for me to add a lining to this particular fabric. I actually got it from my mom's abandoned box, so I decided to just make a tutorial with this, and the outcome of this skirt was really beautiful, trust me. So for this fabric, I made this of 3 yards, and that was all I needed for this skirt. So I'm just going to get started now with my drafting, but firstly I have to show you all some of the addition, subtraction and multiplication that has to be done right here. So the length of my skirt is 28 inches. Okay, that is the measurement from my waistline up to where I want my skirt length to stop. Is 28 inches. So because I'll be attaching a flare to this my skirt, it has to be divided. Okay, so now I need to really decide on where I want the straight part or the fitted part of my skirt to stop. So from my waist I measure down 15 inches, and the fitted part of this my skirt is going to be 15 inches long. Then when I subtract 15 inches from 28 inches, which is the full length of my skirt, I'll be left with 13 inches. So just know that 15 inches is the fitted part, the length of the fitted part of my skirt. Then I'll subtract it from 28 inches, which is the full length of my skirt. Then I'll be left with 13 inches. So this 13 inches now will be the length of my flare. Okay, so I hope you understand. So having explained that, I went ahead now to start folding this my fabric into two so that I can start drafting. So to get your desired fold, in order not to waste your fabric, you have to divide your largest part. So for me at this point, the largest circumference on my body was my hip circumference, so I had to divide it into 4. So my hip circumference is 42 inches. I divided it into 4 and added extra 2 inches to that. Okay, so I now folded and started pinning at the ends of the fold of that my fabric. So now from the top part of this my fabric, I'm going to rule a line at that top part. So that will be my guide, and all my measurements will be starting from there, and that automatically becomes my waistline as well. Okay, so from that first line, which is my waistline, I will start my vertical measurements. So I'll be fixing or attaching a band of 1.5 inches to this my skirt, meaning that I'll be subtracting 1.5 inches from all the vertical measurements which I'll be marking right here. So placing my 1.5 inches on that first line, which is my waistline, I got my hip length of 9 inches and now my skirt length of 15 inches, as you can see right here. Then I added extra 1 inch for the joining allowance to the flare part of this our skirt. Okay, so having marked all these lines, I'll go ahead now and extend them into a straight line. So this other one now is my hip line of 9 inches. So I'll come over to my waistline, which is that first line at the top part of my fabric, and I'll divide my waist circumference of 32 inches by 4, and right there I have 8 inches. So I'm going to place my tape from the folded edge of this my fabric and mark 8 inches exactly on that line. So the next I'll move to my hip line and I'll divide my hip circumference. My hip circumference is 42 inches, so I'll divide it by 4, and whatever it is I have, I'm going to mark it right there on that second line, which is my hip line. So 42 divided by 4 should be around 10.5 inches, I think so. So I made that point right there now. So I'm going to get my curve rule to connect that point I have on my waistline down to this my hip line, just this way. Okay, So after marking that, now I will just go ahead and measure out what I have on my hip line. So what I have there is 10.5 inches. I'm just simply going to subtract 1.5 inches from there and now mark it on the full length of this my skirt. Okay, so right there now I marked 9 inches. So just subtract 1.5 inches because I don't want it to be too penciled and I also don't want it to be too free on my leg, okay, or on my towels. So after this, now I'll go ahead and add 1 inch for my stitching or my joining allowance to the back part of my skirt. So I'm not creating a dart. This will be a dartless skirt, okay. So that is just simply it for the upper part of this our skirt, and I'll go ahead and cut out. But when I want to cut out that upper part, which is the waist area, I'll have to go up by about half of an inch for joining allowance to the band of our skirt. So after cutting that out, now I went ahead to get the other folded part of this my fabric. So I placed the front part of this my skirt on it, but if you watch properly, I didn't start placing this front part of my skirt from the folded edge of that my fabric. This is because 1 inch zipper allowance needs to be given to the back part of my skirt so that we can easily wear our skirt frill, okay. So when I did that, I went ahead to measure to make sure that all I had there was 1 inch allowance for our zipper. When it corresponded, I went ahead now to cut out the sides and also the top part. So I need to create my butt curve right here so that this will fit perfectly on our butt, okay. So from the upper part I marked 5 inches down, from there I marked 8 inches, and I make the normal curve which you normally give to our the back part of our skirts or our gown, okay. So I have a proper detailed tutorial on how to go about that, which I'll also be pinning the link to that tutorial in the comment section. So I went ahead to notch the upper part of my skirt so I can differentiate it from the lower part, because it can be confusing most times. So when I was done, I spread this out. This is the front part and this is what I have. So the next now is for me to cut out the flare part or the lower part of this our skirt. So remember that I said that the flare part of our skirt is going to be 13 inches, and because this is a two-step flare, we have to divide this 13 inches into two, so one will be longer than the other. So the first part of our flare is going to be 5 inches long and the second one will be 8 inches long. So the second one will be 3 inches longer than the first one, okay. So now I'm going to start folding. I started off now by folding from the sides inside this way. Then I made sure I arrange it very well and make sure there are no folds underneath my fabric, just the same way I'm doing right here. Now from the top part of this my folded fabric, I'm going to fold this down this way, okay. So I hope all I'm doing right here is very clear to you. So I'll fold it down this way and also make sure I get rid of any folds, okay. So after doing this and I made sure that everything is properly arranged, I'm going to fold this now in a triangular shape or in a cone shape, okay. So at that other end I held my fabric and now formed this shape, okay. So you can replay this to have a better understanding on how I folded this. Is actually not hard, okay, just trust me. So now I'm going to get the front part of my skirt. So at the base, that was my reason for notching so that I can differentiate the top part from the lower part. At the base right there, I'm going to measure what I have. So when I measured this, I had 20.5 inches. So I have to multiply it by 2, and altogether I think that was 42 inches, right? So, or 41 inches or thereabout. So I need to actually subtract 2 inches from 42 inches, okay, or 41 inches, please pardon my calculation. So this is because I'll be joining my skirt at both sides with 1 inch before I go ahead to attach my flare. So after the subtraction, now I went ahead now to count the folds I have on this my flare, which is 6. So I'm going to divide 39 inches or 14 inches or thereabout by 6. So what I had was 6.5 inches. So I just had to get rid of that half of an inch. So now I'll start by marking 6 inches. So this part I'm marking, this 6 inches, is actually the part that will be fixed to the base of that our skirts by the time we are done joining the front and the back. So you can see how I placed my tape, the head of my tape at that pointy part at the top, and I'm just moving this in a circular motion this way, and I went ahead to get my kind of curved effects right here. So after that, now I'm going to mark the length of my flare. So this is the shorter part of my flare, which will be at the top of the longer one. So I am going to mark um 5 inches, then plus extra 1 inch for hemming and also for joining. Okay, so for hemming the lower part and also joining the upper part to the upper part of our skirt. Okay, so when I did this, I just thought about adding extra 1 inch because of the cuts we'll be having on our skirt that will give us that slanty effect on our skirt. Okay, so I ended up adding 2 inches extra, but I'll be stitching with 1 inch. Okay, so the same way I did for that top part, I also moved this my tape in a curvy manner this way, and I got the length of my flare. So to get the length of your flare, you have to place the head of your tape on that first curve, okay, which is this one I'm cutting off right now. So when I'm done, I went ahead to cut this out. So this is what I have. This is actually a full circle flare, okay, for those that might be wondering. So now I'm going ahead now to cut out for the longer part of my flare, which I'll be fixing to my skirt. So I'll fold into two. Then from the top part, I will bring this my folded fabric down this way. Now from that other pointy edge at the top part there, I'll use my finger to hold that point, and now from here I'll fold this into a cone shape or A form. Okay, the alphabet A. So one thing you should know if you folded this properly is when one side is entirely closed and the other side has this opens. Okay, so that part I opened up has opens, but this other slanted side does not have any open. So that is how you know that you folded this very well. So also make sure that you arrange this properly. Get rid of any folds. There are not meant to be any folds, or else your flare will not turn out nice. Okay, so when I made sure everything was properly arranged, I now brought the short part of my flare. I'm going to place it on this second folded flare which I have right here. So I'm going to make sure that everything aligns. So to get the length of my second flare, which is 8 inches, I'm going to place the head of my tape from the first curve I have on this my flare, so you can see right here. So I'm also going to add extra 2 inches to the length of this my second flare, because we'll be cutting off some inches from our skirts in order to get that slant. Okay, so it is really needed because it is going to be very short if I don't go ahead to do this. Okay, so just the same way I did for the first part or the shorter part of my flare, you have to keep moving this in a curvy or in a circular semicircle. This is not a full circle, I mean the curve I'm giving right here. So when I did this, now you can see what I have. So I'll go ahead now to also cut this out. So I'm following that shape. You see that it's not straight, it's curved. Okay, so after that I'll go ahead and cut out now for this top part. So make sure that everything aligns, and also go ahead to pin if you cannot really work perfectly without pinning. So at the end of the day, the difference I had in the length was also 3 inches. So now I'm just going to bring these two flares together because I'm actually going to join them. So all these things you're seeing on this skirt, please, they are not dirt, it's actually stain. I already told you all that I got this fabric from an abandoned box by my mom. Okay, so make sure you place the short part of your flare on top of the longer one, and now join them at that top part, or just say the waist part. So now this is the front part of my skirt. So I actually went ahead now to create this curve. So this curve I created right here, I thought at the first place it was a curve, but when I had a second look, I realized that it was actually a slant, like from one part to the other side of my skirt. Okay, so this is why I was a bit faster, because by the time I did this, I realized that this wasn't how it was meant to be. Okay, so I just left that for now, Now I got the back part of my skirt, and I'm going to start joining them right sides facing each other at the sides. So you can see that I pinned the front part of my skirt to the back and the other side as well, and I pinned the sides, so you can see that they properly align. I'm pinning right sides facing each other. Okay, so when I do this now, mark my stitching or sewing allowance of 1 inch. So you see the reason why I told you all to subtract 2 inches from the flare. Okay, so now the hair is the piece I'll be cutting out for my band. So I folded this into two this way, and from the top part I'll fold again. So I'm trying to cut out two pieces of my band all at once. Okay, so the next I'm going to mark my waist circumference right here. So my waist circumference divided by 2 is 16 inches. So I added extra 3 inches to the length of this band because I don't want to be short of fabric. So now for the height of my band, which is 1.5 inches, I don't need to mark 1.5 inches because we need stitching allowance. So I ended up marking 2.5 inches so that by the time I stitch by ½ inch at both sides of my band, I'll arrive at 1.5 inches. Okay, so after marking that, I went ahead now to cut these out just this way. So here now I've gone ahead to join the front part and the back part of my skirt just at the side. So I still have the center back of my skirt open. So this is what I'm trying to show you all right here. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and slant this later on after fixing my zipper to this my skirt. Okay, so now I'm just going to fix my band firstly to this my skirt before I fix my zipper. So just pay proper attention, it's quite easy to do. So I brought one part of my band and I folded this into two, so to get the middle of this my band. Okay, I also did the same thing for my skirt. I folded this into two, I got the middle of this my skirt. I also went ahead to notch it as well. So I'm going to spread this out now. So this is the right side of my fabric. Okay, I'll also get the right side of this my band, the right side. So I'm going to place these two notched parts together and I'm just going to pin. So by the time I pin, I have this at a place. I'm now going to stitch at that top part using just ½ inch. Okay, so just stitch using just ½ inch. So here it is, I've stitched using just ½ inch, and this is what I have. So those excesses that is there, that's longer than my skirt, I'll just cut it out just this way. So after this now, the next thing is to fix my zipper. Okay, so this will help you to achieve a neat finishing and for your fabric to properly cover your zipper. Okay, so now I'm just going to mark ½ inch. Remember, while I was cutting out my butt curve, I removed ½ inch from my zipper allowance. So what I have left now is ½ inch. Okay, which is what I'm marking to the very end of this my skirt. Now I'll now place my zipper. Please pardon my non-matching colored zip. Okay, this is what I had at this point, and of course it's my dress. This is our signature. Okay, so I went ahead now to pin my zipper. I believe we all know how to fix our zipper. Okay, so you place the right side of your zipper to the right side of your fabric this way and stitch one side and the other side. So I'll assume I've stitched the both sides of my zipper. After doing this, you have to open up your zipper this way. You get your second band on the right side facing your first band. You are going to place it and stitch at the top part using just ½ inch, and that is it right here. So when you do this, and this is what you're going to have, and you're just going to stitch up the remaining parts, the lower part of your skirt. So this is what it looks like when you flip it to the right side. So for these rough edges, I'm just going to fold it in, which is that ½ inch extra I have. So when I'm done with that, I'll have a very neat finishing. So now I'm going to slant this my skirt very well because it was actually a slant and not really a curve. Okay, but this all depends on what you want to achieve. It must not really be a slant. You can decide to give yourself even a zigzag shape, straight, curve, whichever shape you love. Okay, so now from that my skirt length, I went up by 3 inches. So if you actually want your slant to be very high, like you want it to start from your hip, you can go ahead to measure your hip length of 9 inches, and from there you now curve it out to the other side of your skirt. But while you are curving, please make sure that from the side of your skirt you go in by at least 2 to 3 inches. All right, so this is what I did right here, and I went ahead to cut this out, and I slanted this. My slant wasn't so pronounced, as you can see right here, but this is just what I didn't want my slant to be very pronounced. Okay, but if you want yours to be pronounced, my dear, please go higher by your desired inches and now slant it to the other side of your skirt, and you will love the outcome. It's so beautiful. So I've joined my two flare together, as you can see right here. So the next thing is to join my flare to the upper part of this my skirt, or to the fitted part of my skirt right here. So this is the right side of my flare, and I'm just going to place it on my table like this. So I joined it. Okay, I joined it using just 3/4 of an inch. Then I'm just going to place it on my table so that I can fix the upper part of my skirt to this flare part of my skirt. So you can see I placed the right side facing the camera, and I now put the fitted part of my skirt in between. So when I do this now, I'll turn my flare to the wrong side, thereby pinning the right side of my flare to the right side of my skirt. So this is pinning one part of my flare to the front part of my skirt. So you can see what I'm doing right here. So I'm going to follow that shape and pin this all around. Like, I'm going to make sure I pin this all around, flowing the way I slanted it. Okay, so just follow that shape so you achieve that slant by the end of the day. So after pinning this all around, I'll go ahead now and hem the rough edges of my flare, or you can go ahead and weave. It all depends on your preference. Okay, so when I flip this to the right side, this is what I'm going to have. So that is all. You go ahead and iron. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this tutorial really helpful. If you have not subscribed, please kindly do so, and I'll see you all in my next one. Do have a wonderful time ahead of you all. Bye.